Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Speak Easy Daily Conversations. I'm Olivia, and today's episode is something that I think many people truly need, especially if you've ever felt nervous, shy, or afraid when speaking English in real situations.
And I'm Ethan. Yes, today we're going to talk about social confidence and how to speak naturally without fear, not just in theory, but in real life situations where you actually have to talk to people.
I think this is one of the biggest struggles for learners. It's not always about vocabulary or grammar. Sometimes you know what to say, but you still hesitate.
Exactly. You know the words, but something stops you, and that something is often fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, or fear of sounding unnatural.
And because of that fear, people stay silent, even when they have something to say.
Yes, and the problem is, the more you avoid speaking, the harder it becomes. Confidence doesn't grow in silence. It grows through action.
Ethan, let me ask you something simple, but very real. Why do people feel so nervous when speaking English in front of others?
I think it comes from a combination of pressure and self-awareness. When you speak in your native language, you don't think too much about how you sound. But in English, you suddenly become very aware of every word, every sentence, every mistake.
That's so true. It's like your mind is constantly checking everything.
Yes, and that creates pressure. You're not just speaking, you're analyzing yourself at the same time.
And that makes it hard to speak naturally.
Exactly. Because natural speaking requires flow, not constant control.
Let's talk about fear. What kind of fears do people usually have when speaking English?
The most common one is fear of making mistakes. People worry that they will say something wrong, use the wrong word, or pronounce something incorrectly.
And they think other people will judge them.
Yes, that's the second fear, fear of judgment. People imagine that others are paying close attention to their mistakes, even though in reality, most people are not.
That's interesting. So the fear is often bigger than the reality?
Exactly. Most of the time, people are more focused on understanding you than judging you.
I want to explore something deeper. Why do we care so much about what others think?
I think it's part of being human. We want to be accepted. We want to feel like we belong. And when we speak in a different language, we feel more vulnerable because we are not fully in control.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking English can feel like exposing yourself.
Yes, because you're showing a version of yourself that is still developing.
Let's imagine a situation. You are in a group conversation, and everyone is speaking English. You understand what they are saying, but you hesitate to join. What's happening in your mind?
In that moment, the mind is probably very active. You might be thinking, what if I say something wrong? What if they don't understand me? Or what if I sound awkward?
And those thoughts stop you from speaking.
Exactly. Even if you have something to say, those thoughts create hesitation.
So, how can someone start speaking in that situation?
I think the key is to lower the pressure. Instead of trying to say something perfect or impressive, just focus on saying something simple.
That sounds easier, but also very effective.
Yes, because confidence grows from small actions. You don't need to say a long sentence. Even a short comment is enough to start.
Like agreeing with someone or adding a simple opinion.
Exactly. Something like, I agree with that, or that's interesting, can already help you join the conversation.
Let's talk about speaking naturally. What does it mean to speak naturally in English?
Speaking naturally means expressing your ideas without overthinking every detail. It means focusing on communication instead of perfection.
So it's not about being perfect?
Not at all. Natural speech includes pauses, small mistakes, and simple sentences. That's how real communication works.
I think many learners try to sound too perfect.
Yes, and that actually makes speaking harder. When you try to control everything, you lose flow.
That's very true. The more you try to be perfect, the less natural you sound. Let's go deeper into confidence. How can someone build social confidence over time?
I think it starts with exposure. You need to put yourself in situations where you speak, even if it feels uncomfortable.
That sounds scary for some people.
It is, but that discomfort is part of the process. Every time you face it, it becomes a little easier.
So confidence is built step by step.
Exactly. It's not something you suddenly have. It's something you develop.
Let's imagine another situation. You try to speak, but you make a mistake, and someone notices. What should you do?
First, don't panic. Mistakes are normal. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes.
That's true.
Second, don't stop speaking. Continue your sentence or correct yourself calmly. The key is to keep going.
That's very important. Don't let one mistake stop you. I want to ask something more personal. Have you ever felt nervous speaking in front of others?
Yes, definitely. There were moments when I felt unsure, when I hesitated, and when I overthought what I wanted to say. But over time, I realized that those feelings are part of the process.
How did you deal with it?
I focused on practice. The more I spoke, the more comfortable I became. And I stopped expecting myself to be perfect.
That's a powerful shift.
Yes, because once you remove the pressure of perfection, speaking becomes easier and more natural.
Let's talk about mindset. What is the best mindset for speaking English confidently?
I think the best mindset is to see speaking as practice, not performance. You are not trying to impress people. You are trying to communicate and improve.
That's very important.
When you change your mindset, your behavior changes. You become more relaxed, more open, and more willing to try.
Before we end, I want to ask one final question. If someone feels afraid to speak English, what would you say to them?
I would say your fear is normal, but it doesn't have to control you. You don't need to wait until you feel confident. Start now, even if you feel nervous.
That's very encouraging.
And remember, every time you speak, you are improving. Every sentence you say is progress.
Let's reflect on today's conversation.
Yes,
Fear is natural.
but it doesn't define you.
Confidence is not something you wait for.
It's something you build.
Speaking naturally is not about perfection.
It's about communication.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
And remember,
You don't need to be perfect to speak.
you just need to start.
See you in the next episode of Speak Easy, Daily Conversations.
Take care.